Welcome to the Pucks with Haggs podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network, with the show brought to you by Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome in. This is the 195th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. Get all of my NHL and Bruins writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns 3 times a week for the Boston Sports Journal and do a weekly Q&A with the subscribers there. So check all of that out and subscribe to the Boston Sports Journal. Great place. Excellent writers, great content. Speaking of great content, with me today, longtime friend and colleague, Mick Colageo. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
My Rink Wrap blog, I link to X and Facebook with it. And just went on with Pete Shepard this morning. So we make little appearances here and there.
Yes, and we were talking before the show, Pete, maybe even next week we'll get Pete on with Mick and myself, and we'll have a great hockey discussion. You can tell some old stories of the old-time Bruins and going to games with him. I can certainly reminisce about the big show and going on with him and Glenn and how meaningful that was to me at that stage of my career. That was awesome. That was like kind of one of those pinnacle moments when you go on that show a few times with those guys.
A turning point. You never look back.
Oh, really, though? I remember one time I was sitting in there with Glenn and Pete, I believe, was there, and it was just the two of us, the three of us, and then Danny Ainge came in and was just shooting.
Wasn't Cedric Maxwell also involved?
Oh, he was always involved, but like this particular time, Danny came in and was talking to us for like 20 minutes, half an hour, just shooting the breeze on the air, and I was just like, 10-year-old me watching the Celtics in the 80s, if I would have thought I'd be in a radio studio with Ordway and Pete talking to Danny Ainge, and he knows my name and he's being nice to me and joking around with me, I'm like, what the hell? What happened along the way for this to be a possibility? Stuff like that. I remember doing Lobel too. Like one time with Felger and Lobel, we were in the studios at Patriot Place doing radio. And I was thinking to myself, like, I watched this guy growing up. I used to love, was it Thursday Night Spotlight or whatever, when he used to do the bloopers and stuff. I forget what it was. But, like, I used to watch him every night. And I loved Lobel.
I love Bob Lobel's anchoring on Channel 4.
He was amazing. And you grew up watching him and knew me. And I end up doing TV with both of those guys. And it's, like, ridiculous. Like, it really
Why
cool
can't
moments.
We get players like this?
Yes, seriously.
That was his.
But like, it was, you could tell something special was going on with Lobel, though. He had like a presence and an aura to him when you did like radio or did anything with him. Like you saw the reason behind why he was such a big deal in Boston for such a long time, and a pioneer and somebody that influenced everybody else. So shout out Bob Lobel. And when I still bump into him now, super nice and gracious to me. Awesome guy. Just a good person and somebody that I think, along with Gammons and a lot of other people, like led a lot of us down the path to doing what we're doing now. But anyway, for those of you listening to this episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS and enjoying all this hockey talk, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Bruins content with fellow Bruins talkers like Conor Ryan and Evan Marinofski. There's also the CLNS Media Network and Patriots Press Pass YouTube channels as well. And please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new Pucks with Haggs podcast video drops on the interwebs. All right. First things first, Mick. Florida and Edmonton in the Stanley Cup Final, kicking things off. Finally, we're going to get some sports to watch after what seems like it's been a bunch of days off with the NBA Final and the Stanley Cup Final going on. NBA Finals, in the Stanley Cup Final. They're very specific about the NBA Finals being plural, and the Stanley Cup Final being singular.
Back when I was a little shorty, it was just called the Stanley Cup.
Yes.
When the final series was just the Stanley Cup.
Yes. See? And it's changed. Now it's
the one way I can tolerate people saying they won this many Stanley Cups, or they should win a Stanley Cup, because it's substantive for the series.
That's right. So how do you see this playing out? Who do you think is going to win?
I'm leaning Edmonton on their side. I just feel like McDavid isn't a generational player to along with Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Sidney
Yep.
Crosby, the big time players who come along in once a generation. Um, uh, Bobby Orr, they're appointed to win.
Yep.
It has to happen at some point. I feel like this is his big chance. I feel like history is against the Florida Panthers. For them to already go to three straight legitimate Stanley Cup finals after full length on schedule seasons, that had not been done since the Gretzky Messier Oilers of the 1984-85, three
Yep.
years in a row. That had
Yep.
not been done. And so for them to do it in the cap era, the way they play, the wear and the tear, it's too tall an ask for me. I could easily see Edmonton carrying the cup around their rink after 6 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point that you make. Like, most definitely, if you're Connor McDavid, your level of greatness being amongst the very best of the best, being that generational guy for your era, you have to win a cup, at least one, preferably a couple. For you to be considered in the same level as Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, Sidney Crosby, any of those guys, and going back further, like you said, Bobby Orr, and back further in time. You have to win a couple, at least one. You have to have at least one Stanley Cup title, preferably more than one. And, he's gotten close now too. And you would think that getting so close last year, and we all saw the videos of the cameras that were in the locker room and how emotional he was after the Game 7 loss, and, getting so close and how emotional he was during that series. You would expect that level is going to be even higher now, having been that close and knowing that his legacy is linked to getting that win and, lifting that cup and having that experience. Not only that, but like, he's obviously a competitor and he wants to win. All of that is rolled into one thing.
Huge competing him.
Of
Huge
course.
compete.
So like, it's it's the pinnacle of a lifelong dream for him to get there. So that's, I think, based on that, and based on that, Edmonton gave them the best series last year, Florida, and was the toughest competition for them and really made it a series in that final. I do think it's going to be 6 or 7 games. I do think it's going to be competitive and back and forth. I do not think this is going to be one of those series where Florida just really turns it on and walks over them, or really just pounds them into submission. That being said, I do think I can't go against Florida at this point after what I've seen for the last couple of years. I am not going to pick against them in a series. And I think it's, even though there's wear and tear of having gone this deep into the postseason for 3 years in a row for Florida, even though there's wear and tear because of the way that they play, which is tough to sustain for like 2 months in a playoff setting after you've already played a full regular season, and then you get the short off season, like doing that 3 years in a row is incredibly difficult. And wearing on the players, and no doubt about that. But they've also brought in players that I think make a difference. You bring in Seth Jones, you bring in Brad Marchand. I think they've been hugely impactful players. We've talked about other players, Nate Schmidt and other guys that have also come in and really come into the fold and all of a sudden become excellent Florida Panthers. But I think with those two in particular, Jones and Marchand, you're talking about players that you bring in that are very impactful, that are coming from the outside, give you fresh energy and blood and excitement to win the cup. And I think that's the kind of thing that puts you over the top if you're trying to do what they're trying to do, which is win back-to-back and be in the Stanley Cup Final 3 years in a row. So I give it to Florida, and I think they're going to win based on the formula that they play with, because I think it's just damn good hockey. You know what I mean? Like, that is just the way playoff hockey should be played, is the way the Florida Panthers play. And I think they get rewarded by the hockey gods for it with a lot of playoff wins because they've earned them and because they haven't taken shortcuts and they go about it the right way. And I think that's going to continue to be the case. Now, Connor McDavid's going to get other chances to win. He's in the prime of his career. I think he will be back in this stage again regardless, and he will eventually win the Stanley Cup. I could very easily see him doing it based on all that you're saying. I could see that happening. I just don't. I think it's going to be Florida again, and I think when it's all said and done, we're going to talk about this Florida team a few years from now as being one of those all-time teams, having done the things that they're doing, playing the style that they're playing. It's amazing to me that they do it without a generational talent. Like Matthew Tkachuk's a great player. Barkov is obviously, like, I think the heir now to Patrice Bergeron being the best two-way center in the league and one of the top players in the league. They got a great goalie in Bobrovsky. They've got a bunch of really good players. But I wouldn't put any of those guys in the class of Gretzky, Lemieux, obviously, even Connor McDavid. So for them, the true team winning and the great coaching they have and all of that stuff, I think that I give them the more checked boxes because of all that. And I think, when it goes down in history, they're going to be up there with the great teams of all time. And we're going to salute them for what they've done. And the last part of that, I think, is winning at least one more. And the interesting thing is, like, with the salary cap going up, they may have an outside chance of keeping a lot of these players, like maybe even keeping a Sam Bennett if he doesn't go for every last, dollar that's on the table right now in free agency. And maybe they could keep together this entire core group that's won and see how many more they could do, which has been tough to do in the salary cap era. But I think when it comes down to it, Mick, I think the Florida Panthers are winners. They know how to win, and I think they're going to do it again in this series.
Hard to argue against that when you consider that they've already proven me wrong. I didn't think they could get to a third straight Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
So for them to already do that, the way they play, and harkening back to the Chicago Blackhawks of 3 championships in a 6-year span earlier in the cap era, they switched out, leveraged by the salary cap, they switched out a lot of their supporting cast and were able to get back because of the durability and formidability of their core. And this seems to be very much what's going on with the Panthers. And maybe they've helped keep the core young mileage wise by being so it's so special, and every team wants to be a destination place where players elevate their game. No team has done it as well in these last few years as the Panthers. AJ Greer was a really a messy Boston Bruin. He was a minor penalty, usually a stupid one, waiting to happen. On that team, he's a very productive support guy. Jesper Boqvist, in and out of the Boston lineup, could not secure a full-time varsity role.
Yeah.
On that team, he's been moved up to the first line at times.
I got to say, though, let me interrupt for 1 second, Mick. I was always mystified by the whether they just let that guy go at the end of the year when he had really
especially
claimed
when
the
they
spot.
wanted speed.
Yeah, when they'd really claimed a
He's
spot in the
lightning
second
fast.
half of the year. He'd claimed a spot in the second half of the year, and he was pretty constant in that lineup. And I thought he was a fast, like, very good player. Like, I still don't quite understand why he was let go when they could have kept him around. I thought he was a very useful player.
I bet they had an internal debate about that because, on one hand, the team philosophy has been let the fourth line operate like a turnstile. We can
Right.
always get more players, and they've farmed up a lot of great fourth liners or bottom 6 guys for the rest of the league by cultivating them in Boston as fourth liners. There's been a ton of them. We could roll through the names. Nola Chari, but I won't keep going. But Stenlin, fourth line center for Florida, I thought was a beast in his role. Thomas Nosek was a very good Bruin. He's in that role now. So they've mitigated that effectively. For them to do what they've done means that they're the best at being greater than the sum of their parts, and their parts are pretty damn good. So it's incredible what they've done. And you're right. If they win this series, they immediately leap into the stratosphere of not only the best teams of the salary cap era, these last 20 seasons, but they have to be talked about with anything comparable to anybody post dynastic Montreal Islanders Oilers. Anybody post beyond those eras, this team stacks up against any of those.
Yeah. And it's, a testament to what Bill Zito and that entire group has built down there, and the ownership. Like, Like, I remember going to Florida Panthers games when the PA was announcing icing and offsides to the crowd to let them know what was going on during NHL games, like to make sure to explain why they knew the whistle was happening and
And the
basically
fans
spoon
already
feed.
knew because they were all fans of the opponent.
Right. But I remember the first time that happened, the first time I covered a road game in Sunrise and that happened, I was like,
This is icing.
what the hell is this? What is going on? Between that and like they had the Miami Heat dance teams there, like during whistles, like for a while
Yeah.
too. Like there was all kinds of crazy stuff going
You
on
know
there.
what's funny is they began Roger Nielsen in the old Miami arena, and they made that Stanley Cup final in their third year of existence, and they threw the rats.
Yeah.
And they had a great thing going. And the NHL's vision was, let's get them to the affluent suburbs. So they park in Sunrise, think they're going to get West Palm Beach fans are going to turn on the hockey, and this is going to be a destination place. It took a long time and a lot of scary moments for that franchise where they easily could have wound up somewhere else. They
Yep.
if the NHL thought that Quebec could support corporate backing could support an NHL team, I think the Panthers would have been there 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this never wound up happening. And now they have their own fan base. And it's incredible. I went to last year's games 1 and 2, and it was unbelievable. The fans engage with the way they play. They are ready for it. They are into it. They love their team. It's incredible. Transplanted Bostonians got a great high school friend, Tommy Hoyle, who was our varsity goalie, Walpole High School back in the mid '70s, early mid '70s, and he'd been living down there his whole adult life. He tells me he's so torn when the Bruins come to play because he's really fallen in love with his Panthers team. So it's just that way down there. They can get to anybody if you watch them long enough. They become your team.
So was he teammates with Richie Hebner and Walpole back in the day?
Well, Richie was from Norwood, but yeah, Richie
Did he
Hebner
play
could
at
have been.
Walpole?
No, Richie Hebner's Norwood. His father
Oh,
was a grave digger, so that was his summer job. And Richie Hebner was a great baseball player as well, and wound up winning the World Series with the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1971.
yep.
He was a teammate of my late great relative cousin Bill Hassenfuss, who is married my cousin Ann, and his son-in-law is Peter Laviolette. So
Okay.
there's a lot of connect I saw growing up with at Four Seasons Arena right up the street from my East Walpole home. But a lot of teams had to call that rink their home back in
Excellent.
the '60s.
All right. So I like that we're both on both sides of this. You think Edmonton, I think Florida. I think either way, we both are on the same page that this is going to be a great series. Before we get into the rest of the show, let's take a quick break and talk to you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Join over 10 million users and get started today. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun and it is super simple. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite hockey players with players from baseball, basketball, esports, and so much more. Here's some picks for this week. Connor McDavid, more than 1.5 points. Sam Bennett, more than 5 hits. Brad Marchand, more than 1.5 shots on goal. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Prize Picks now offers Venmo, MasterCard, and Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Also, for those of you listening to this episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS and enjoying all this hockey talk, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Bruins content with fellow Bruins talkers like Conor Ryan and Evan Marinofski. There's also the CLNS Media Network and Patriots Press Pass YouTube channels as well. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new Pucks with Haggs podcast video drops, on the interwebs. All right. Where are you at with the coaching search, Mick? Mitch Love, Marco Sturm, Jay Woodcroft, and Jay Leach seem to be the names that kind of got in there as the finalists. The news this week was, I think, Monday. Joe Sacco was notified that he is not going to be returning. Disappointing, not surprising. I'd kind of hoped that maybe he could be brought back in his former associate head coach, role or be on the bench just because he'd been there for more than a decade, had great institutional knowledge. I thought was a really loyal employee and a loyal person to the Boston Bruins and did a great job when he was here. No surprise, though. Like the one thing I thought as soon as they mentioned that is he's not going to be out of work very long at all because he's a very widely respected coach and a lot of people, good person too, a good hockey person. And the talk this morning was that he may end up on Mike Sullivan's staff with the New York Rangers, which wouldn't surprise me at all. So where are you at with the head coaching stuff? I still think it should be Marco Sturm. For all the reasons that I've said before, I just feel strongly about him. I think he's the right fit, the right person for this team right now. And he can bridge between so many people that work in the organization and the team that's on the ice. And he understands what the expectations are, the pride of wearing the crest, like all that different stuff. Like he is all about that and he understands it inherently because he did it. And I'm totally okay with the Bruins continuing, Cam Neely and Don Sweeney continuing to make decisions where it's kind of keeping it in the Bruins family. I think that's the right way to do it, is to keep it with, people that played for this organization, people that understand what it's like to be a part of this organization, that understand the fan base, that understand the pride that's involved, the expectation. Like the best way to keep that culture going from generation to generation is to keep everybody in the same family working and pulling from the same rope. And I like seeing guys like Zdeno Chara join the front office. I like other people potentially joining the organization, and I like a guy like Marco Sturm coming in to be the next head coach.
People are going to argue, and you know this obviously, that this is what's holding them back from taking the next step.
Maybe.
And like the Philadelphia Flyers famously do the same thing. And it never works. Okay, fine. However, there's no point in getting a strange head coach who's expected to do his own thing and not work in a synergy with management if you're not changing out management.
Right.
And the same people are going to argue that the one time that the Bruins went outside, they got a guy who was completely unrelated to the organization and they won the Stanley Cup. So, yeah, it's there's two ways of looking at this. But as long as Cam Neely and Don Sweeney are running this show, then it makes sense to go to take the things that you're talking about into heavy consideration. Um, I think as long as the coach is collaborative, you can achieve the hockey aspects of those things. But I have a great big spot in my heart for Marco Sturm. And I do see, any research will tell you that his resume is legit. This isn't a guy that, he played for us and we liked him, so let's bring him back and roll him out there. No, this is a guy who made his bones in another organization, coaching in the minors, being an assistant in the NHL, and has an international, got a silver for Germany. So there's a lot there. So he certainly has earned his place in this consideration as we get to the home stretch of the Bruins deciding who's the right guy for this group that's yet in formation. I think it's a 3-year program for them to get this roster where they want it for Stanley Cup contention. I think that they can say, look, we can get back in the playoffs with our team next year. And I know the theory is once you get in, anything can happen, but I don't really believe that. I believe that this is probably more like a 3-year program for them to take the Pasternak McAvoy team and march it forward into legitimate cup consideration. I think you need 3 years of moves with this team to climb that ladder. And I think that all of these candidates are legit. I think that Love is an excellent candidate. He might be the next Spencer Carberry. So I wouldn't want to miss that boat again like they did when they hired Monty. And I'm not against Monty. It's just it didn't work out in the long
Yeah.
run. But so I don't really know how I feel about it anymore. I'm still mystified about the lack of Greg Cronin anywhere in these discussions or reports. I
Yeah.
just find what he did with the Anaheim Ducks so compelling the last two seasons and bringing them off the mat and in those ridiculous peanut candy uniforms to being a team that's hard on the puck and ready for the playoffs. And Pat Verbeek was proactive, got Joel Quenneville to bring him in and say, we got to take another step. I can envision it. He's had a long playing career. He envisions it with a different face there. Of course, these things happen. So he tried to get out in front of it and do that. Um, and so, how the hell is Cronin not somewhere in the middle of this? Boston guy, 61 years old, tons of experience, every kind of hockey, and he's recent success. I just blows my mind that I haven't heard his name anywhere in any of this.
Well,
Anyway,
not
that said, this is a good list of guys.
yeah, not only that, Mick, but he interviewed the last time when Monty was hired too. He was another guy that was of interest to the Bruins and was at Warrior for an interview. And, by all accounts, had a good interview and obviously, interviewed well elsewhere. And that's why he got the job in Anaheim. And, I do think maybe some of the stuff that came out mid-season about the players not being happy or whatever, maybe that's played into it.
That
That
would
was
make
kind
me
of
like
spitting.
him.
Yeah, that was kind of spitting chicklets scuttlebutt. But I don't
Should
think
we
that's
be waiting on
necessarily a
Peter
bad
DeBoer?
thing. I don't want Mr. Popular. Jim Montgomery was kind of a rah-rah guy, that was popular with the players, and that's fine. But none of that's going to matter if you can't get them ready to play in the playoffs. If you can't get them ready to win when it matters most, I don't necessarily need the head coach of the NHL team to be the player's best friend and be somebody that's super well liked in all corners of the dressing room. You want a guy that's going to be able to command respect, do X's and O's, manage personalities, maximize production, and maximize the level that everybody's playing at, and get the best out of everybody. That's really what you care about. And I think Cronin has been able to do that throughout his career. So I agree with you. I'm a little surprised that he's not in the mix as well. But and also to your point, Marco Sturm, not only with the LA Kings, but internationally with Team Germany too. He's got an impressive resume where he's done a great job wherever he's been. And I also thought it was interesting. I went back the other day and was going through what Don Sweeney talked about, or his press conferences at the end of the season. And he specifically referenced LA when he was talking about being innovative offensively and evolving offensively while also keeping defensive structure and, potentially going from a zone defense to a man-to-man or a hybrid and all this other stuff. He was talking about the LA Kings systems and what that organization does specifically. And I thought that was interesting too, that he dropped that in there where, Sturm is a guy that's very well versed in all of that stuff in LA, being from that organization now. So I thought all of that was really interesting. I think, all of the candidates are worthy, and I think all of them would do a really good job if they got the gig. I do think Marco Sturm stands out for a lot of different reasons, and I think he just makes the most sense. Do I believe there's going to be some fans that will grumble and say either, oh, this is, they went for a coach that doesn't have any NHL experience because they don't have to pay him a lot, and they can kind of dictate terms to him and all that stuff, and oh, this is a PR thing because he scored a bunch of goals for the Bruins, blah blah blah, and none of that is true. This is a legit guy who's deserving of an NHL job, who has a great resume, who also happened to be an excellent player for a period of time for the Bruins and had some big moments with the franchise. And I think all of that, when you put it together, makes him a uniquely perfect candidate for this job. So I hope he gets it. And I also hope he gets it because he's a good guy. He's we root for people in this business. We've known Marco a long time. Excellent person, excellent hockey player. You can see him very easily becoming a leader of men with the Bruins in that dressing room and being a guy that's well respected and liked, and that people are going to play hard for, and that is going to do a good job. I could easily see all that stuff because you can see it as a player. that he was that same exact thing. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But, I still think Sturm is the guy until proven otherwise. But if they name somebody else, but we'll see how it happens. They still have to negotiate terms, come to an agreement with the coach. Like, we were talking about. We were thinking when Sacco was mentioned Monday as that he was no longer in the running. It was probably imminent that they were going to name somebody. And we're recording this on Wednesday, and nothing has happened as of yet. So we'll see what happens there. All right,
Now,
we
when
got
you
a
did
couple.
mention about Joe Sacco, you seem to indicate that he's no longer going to be in the organization. I
Right.
wasn't sure that was clear.
I think that was my
I
sense.
anticipated as well.
Yeah, that was my sense, is that he was not returning. I thought that's
In
what
fact,
it was.
yeah, okay. I guess when I heard this, I thought it was just about you're not going to be the head coach. But I'm thinking if I'm him, this is a good time to jump on somebody else's staff,
Yeah,
even if
for
it's
sure.
not predicated on becoming a head coach. It's just it's time.
Yep.
If I'm him, it's
Um,
time.
all right. A couple emails here. This is from Duncan Sewell Insuk, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. My question surrounds Casey Middlestat. There's a lot of talk about him as one of the best trade assets the Bruins have, and what did he really show anyone last year? He had 2 career AHLs for line mates, and I feel like we didn't get an accurate look at him as a player. I feel it's too soon to totally write him off or really understand his trade value. Would you agree with that? If so, how long do you give him next year? Hopefully with more legit NHL wingers to show his value. If not, what's your argument for his trade value with other teams? I don't think that he has a lot of trade value. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think this is a great trade asset. I think this is somebody that the Bruins took on as a player they believe they can get more out of maybe than other teams have gotten out of him in previous, NHL destinations, and that maybe this is one of those diamond in the rough type players, the reclamation projects that they can get to a higher level than he's been previously. Like, you look at his NHL resume to this point, like Mick, very good skater, very skilled player, like looks really good on the power play. Definitely more of a playmaker than a scorer as far as goal scoring goes. Not the strongest guy in the world, not the most offensively reliable guy in the world, but certainly a guy that I think if you put him with other talented offensive players can make things happen.
Do I have to be the one?
Go ahead.
He plays soft.
Yeah, he does.
His career has not lived up to his top 10 draft position. He was one of a group of budding American star players of a certain generation and drafted appropriately in that position. And he looks like he could be all that, but I don't know if that's really what he wants out of hockey. If he wants to play like the Florida Panthers play, if he wants to do that kind of battle, I feel like he's been equipped with the wherewithal and blessed with the abilities to become a formidable player in this league. The Bruins agreed to take on this contract, hoping that they can do for his career similarly what they've done for Pavel Zacha, for Morgan Geekie, and
Yep.
Hampus Lindholm, and elevate him into a significant impact player in the NHL, something he had yet to achieve.
Yeah, the
Um,
unfortunate part is he doesn't play like Pavel Zacha or or
well,
Morgan Geeky.
I
He
mean,
doesn't like
Morgan
like
Geekie
hard
had
nosed
not
stouts. To
impressed.
your point about calling him soft, like those are
Well,
much harder players than either one than him.
Well, that's true, but the Kraken had a chance. Had Morgan Geekie was RFA for the Kraken, and they didn't qualify him. That's how the
Right.
Bruins got him. Pavel
Yep.
Zacha was 6th overall in the 15 draft, and his career was meandering in Jersey, and the Bruins took him with a purpose and
Yep.
trained him up, coached him up with while Bergeron and Krejci was still playing, and to be a hybrid center wing, and it's been a successful project for them. Hampus Lindholm came from obscurity to become a real impact player, a two-way defenseman, uh, all-star level. I mean, it's so really can Middlestat tap in? Can they tap into him? That's the question. Heretofore, it hasn't happened in his career. Um, I look at him play these handful of games for the Bruins, and it feels like a long shot. to to reach him somehow and tap into that? Can they find him and communicate with him and get him to bring out of himself what seems to be there potential wise? Uh, and I don't know if it's there, uh, but it's but the ability sure looks like it is. Um, I guess how bad do you want it? Do you really want to let your career just play out and and enjoy your time? Hey, you know what? 700 players in this league. Not everybody's going to feel the same way about the game.
Yep. Yep. I think that's right. And you do see it in flashes, though. He's always going to be a guy, I think, that teases you because you see it. You can see it sometimes on the ice just flash.
Reminds me of Skinner.
Yeah, you can see
Not the
the
goalie.
ability there, and there's no question about it. Um, not there consistently. Certainly not there in a hard-nosed or hard in any fashion style. Definitely more of a finesse player, I would call him, than anything else. And it was interesting that they talked about him as being a very different kind of player than Charlie Coyle, even though they were traded for each other. That they were bringing a different style guy, maybe to look for a little more offense when they brought him in. And kind of Fraser Minton has looked more, I think, as the heir apparent to the way Charlie Coyle played, and that's what they're grooming him to be in Providence. So, but the bottom line is he mentions him as a trade asset. I don't think he's a trade asset. I don't see how you're gonna find somebody that's going to take $5+ million off your hands unless you're giving good assets back as a salary dump kind of thing. I think you're going to be with him for the next couple of years for the duration of the contract that he has right now. And they're hoping they can squeeze more offense out of him. As reference, maybe put him with better wingers offensively and, put him on the power play and let him elevate those areas. And maybe eventually he becomes a guy, Mick, that they put him on the power play and he really becomes a power play sort of like specialist, or that's where he shines the most. And that's fine if that helps them, increase their power play production, and you can live with, whatever downside there's going to be defensively when they're out there 5-on-5.
Center iceman, man, you got to play two ways. You got to be hard on the puck.
Yep.
David Krejci is probably what they're hoping he can shoot for in his career. David Krejci, for all of the silk and smoothness in his game, he was hard to play against.
Yep. He's competitive. And that was he wasn't the most physical guy in the world, but he competed hard.
Positionally he was, even though, it was kind of like bumping into a marshmallow. It was the way he preserved his own body to play the way he did. He came all the way back and helped the defense, the breakout. He did all the hard stuff.
He did. And that's why, they won. That's why they built around those two centers for a long time. Bergeron and Krejci. That was the backbone of that team and their greatness.
Game 2 in Philadelphia, 2011. Game that goes to overtime. Who's the assassin? David Krejci.
Yep. Well, and that's in the year before when they played Philadelphia. That's when it fell apart, when he took that hit from Mike Richards.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Here's another question. I saw your podcast with Mick talking about Sturm taking the reins as head coach. I agree 100% with your logic on them hiring him. I also agreed with the person who suggested maybe waiting until next year to break the bank signing free agents. I think you said that, Mick. I think this year the focus should be trying to reestablish the new core with all the young faces we brought in last year and giving them a legit chance to prove themselves. Having said that, I am very open to trading Korpisalo and getting his contract off the books. As for the 2025 draft, I am hoping Brady Martin is sitting there at 7. He doesn't have the upside as some of the other centers available, but players like him, a la Sam Bennett, don't grow on trees. You and Mick do a great job, and that's from Shane Walsh. Thank you very much, Shane. Appreciate that. Korpisalo trade.
Shane's awesome.
Yes, he is. Korpisalo trade, Mick. Is that something?
No, I don't agree with you, Shane. I think it's fine. Leave it alone. Let's let the goaltending start from scratch. Have a good camp, and let's let it roll it out there. I think it's the right backup. It's a veteran backup. It could be a competitive backup. Let it play out. What's wrong with this? I don't see a problem.
And people because Korpisalo said at breakup day that he wants to play more, people took that as, oh, we need to trade him. It's going to be a problem. Like, I think it's fine having an established veteran as Swayman's backup that wants to play more and is going to push him, and it's going to be a competitive situation. I don't think that's bad. I think that's what Swayman has always been in through his entire career, and that's probably going to help him be in a better place if you're actually playing Korpisalo a little bit more, and the threat is there of him potentially taking playing time away from Swayman to a degree. Like, it's going to be hard because Swayman obviously has like the big cap number and the big salary, and it becomes harder to, create a 60-40 or 50-50 situation with goalies when that's the case. But I think you can give Korpisalo a few more starts than they gave him this past season, and it would even out a little bit more to the point where it's similar to maybe what it could have been in the past, where Swayman's playing a bit more, but Korpisalo's playing enough to keep him satisfied as well, and that would probably keep them both in much better shape as far as performance goes. But like, the bottom line, Mick, is that I think we've seen where Swayman, what situation works best for Swayman, and until he's proven otherwise, until he's shown us that he can be a dominant player, like playing 55 to 60 games and playing at the level he did a couple of years ago, until he actually goes out there and proves that and has a great training camp, a great season, a great, like, from beginning to end, soup to nuts, like, you need another veteran guy to come in and push him, and Korpisalo is the perfect guy for that.
My brain has become preoccupied with the fact that I needed to be off the air 4 minutes ago.
So. All right. You know what, Mick? Thank you for reminding me of that. We have discussed Korpisalo enough. Let's wrap this up because Mick needs to go. For those of you listening to this episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS and enjoying all this hockey talk, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Bruins content with fellow Bruins talkers like Conor Ryan and Evan Marinofski. There's also the CLNS Media Network and Patriots Press Pass YouTube channels as well. Please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new Pucks with Haggs podcast video drops on the interwebs. Thanks also to Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when we play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Mick, thank you very much.
Joe, I think you have a future reading the final sentence of car commercials.
Yes, I could be like the Matchbox, the super fast guy there back in the Hot Wheels guy. Thank you, everybody else out there, for listening. We'll see you at the rink.